Chapter 8 of Tales from Silver Lands. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Mark Shellhammer. Tales from Silver Lands by Charles Finger. The Hero Twins. There was once a woman who had 2 sons, and they were twins, so much alike that the mother herself could not tell one from the other. So Hunahpu always wore a crimson feather, and Belonk a blue one. As children, they spent their days in the open air, playing in the forest, swimming in the lake, and wandering on the plains, and so doing they came to know the animals and the birds, finding the young ones and playing with them, so it was no uncommon sight to see them come home with a panther following at their heels as a dog does. They knew where to find the nests of birds of all kinds, fed the young ones, and petted them until with a call they could bring from the trees clouds of glorious-colored birds which would perch on their hands and arms and shoulders. And of course, it came about in time that when animals and birds gathered about the lads, there was no more fighting between the wild creatures than there is between a puppy and a kitten that had been raised together. Growing up with the wild creatures, wrestling with them and racing with them, the boys grew strong and fleet of foot. They could scale a cliff to reach a condor's nest or climb a tree as swiftly as a monkey, and in the water they were as much at home as on the land. Down into the clear depths they would dive, down into the cool green lake waters to bring up shells and bright stones, one boy striving with the other, laughing merrily the while. And sitting on the shore in the sunshine, they would often look across the lake to the faraway mountain, talking about the time when they would adventure there to see what could be seen. Their father taught them to shoot straight with the arrow and to use well the spear, and when they were masters of these, he made for them breastplates of silver and light helmets that flashed in the sun. And as time went on, they wandered here and there, finding other boys of their own age, and these, too, had helmets and breastplates of silver made for them by their fathers, and had learned the use of the bow and spear, until at last there was a band of 400, of which Hunahpu and Belonk were leaders. Then there were great times with running and racing and swimming and wrestling, and soon the 400 had agreed that when one of their number was in trouble, not of his own seeking, at the sound of the horn, the rest would come to his rescue. But not all the time was spent in play, for the band of the 400 were wise in all the arts, playing the flute, working in metals, painting, woodcraft, and other like activities. One day, Hunahpu and Belonk were in the forest gathering fruit, when there came to them an old man and wife, weeping sadly. They were strangers to the place, and seeing the 2 lads in their armor of silver, with bows in their hands and swords by their sides and feathers of crimson and of blue in their glittering helmets, they stood for a while silent. But being asked, they told their tale of how they had lived in the mountain on the other side of the lake, among a people who were in terror of their lives because of 3 great and fearful giants, who came now and then, taking the cattle and the goats, destroying for mere mischief the houses of the people, and sometimes killing the people themselves. Nothing, they said, could withstand the strength of the giants. Stone walls were as mere sticks to them. They uprooted trees or turned the courses of rivers by scooping away masses of earth with their hands. Hearing that, the twin brothers were greatly disturbed, for as they had sat by the lake sometimes, talking of the land far away, they had heard strange noises faintly coming over the waters, which they had set down as summer thunders. With the tale of the old man and his wife, they began to believe that things were more serious than they had supposed. Stepping to a place clear of trees, Hunahpu put his horn to his lips and blew long and loudly 3 times. Soon from all directions came lads running, each girt with his sword, his spear in hand, and his bow at his back, breastplate and helmet glittering in the bright sun. You can figure for yourself that fine band of clean, straight-limbed fellows, each with his drawn sword and silver helmet with drooping plume, You can imagine how they looked standing there with the cool green forest behind them. And they were not only the 400, but also their friends of the forest. Here a puma, there a panther or deer, bright-colored birds, glorious hummingbirds, and proud llamas, for not a boy but had his wild creature for a pet. To the band of the 400, the old man and his wife told their tale, mentioning what they had not done before, that their sons and daughters had been carried off by 2 of the giants. At that, there stepped from the ranks a lad with flashing eyes, who said that not a year should pass over their heads before the giants were overcome. And a great shout of joy went up. Then and there the lad who had spoke cried, "Let everyone step forward who will go to the land of the evil 3. And no sooner were the words out of his lips than the whole 400 stepped forward. But, as Flashing Eyes said, some must stay at home, for there were things to be done. So he proposed that 20 alone should go. Even then, there was no way to decide which of them should be of the 20, for everyone wanted to go forward to the adventure. At that, Blanc offered to go alone to the land, to see what would be the best plan to pursue. But again there was trouble, for each of the 400 wanted to go with him. So at last it was decided to leave the matter to be settled by chance. Each one was to call to his pet wild creature, and the first 2 touched would go to the land of the giants. Then a great calling went up, a naming of names, a whistling, and a making of noises like the call of animals, and from the leafy caves came the pets, running, leaping, flying. Each lad there had hung his sword and his bow on a branch, and stood with arms outstretched to welcome his pet, and there was much laughter and good spirit. Down from the sky came sweeping a hawk, straight as an arrow, and it lit on the shoulder of Blanc. At the very same moment, a llama thrust its nose into the neck of Hunahpu. And that only a second before a fleet deer had leaped to the side of Flashing Eyes. So all there knew that the twin brothers were chosen to go to the land, and there was no more arguing about it. That night the band slept under the brilliant stars, and the next morning there went up a great shout as at sunrise the brothers set off, every one of the 400 knocking his sword on his shield by way of salute. From the top of a ridge the twins waved their band a farewell. Then they turned, and a moment later were lost to view. And the members of the band went each about his own affair, ready to come at a call. All that day and the next they traveled, and on the morning of the 3rd day they came to a place where great black rocks and hills all treeless and bare, and near the noon hour they saw a great cave in the mountainside, the floor of which was strewn with bones of animals, some of the bones indeed being great things as big as a man, from a creature of which the boys had never seen the like. These bones had been cracked for the marrow in them, and the teeth marks told their tale of the size of the giant who had eaten them. To a top of the mountain the boys climbed, and when they had gained the summit, there at their feet was a great hollow place, and at the other end sat a monstrous fellow, his hands on his knees, his body swaying to and fro. He was rumbling and grumbling and peering here and there in a queer way. The boys noticed that he did not turn his head to look with a sweep of the eyes as they did, or as you do, turning to see in a semicircle over a greater extent. His way was different. He would turn his head in a certain direction with his eyes closed, then open them and look. From the place where his glance lit, he could not turn. If he wanted to look somewhere else, he had to close his eyes and begin again, so that his looking was more like shooting a bullet at a mark than anything, and if he missed and had to begin again. And of course he often missed. Yet it was his way, and he must have been very satisfied with it to judge by the song he sang, which was this. My name is K-Kix, U-Q-K-Kix. My eyes are bright as silver, they gleam like precious stones. My name is Ka-Kix, U-Kub-Ka-Kix, Ka-Kix, Ka-Kix. Over and over again he sang that, Then, with a tremendous roar, he shouted, "I am Ka-Keeks, you Ka-Keeks, and all men fear me." Then the twins, hearing that idle boast, stood on the hilltop and shouted, "Catch us, Ka-Keeks, if you can. We come to make an end of you." For a moment, the giant sat still in sheer astonishment, his eyes closed, his ear cupped in his hand to catch the direction of the sound. The boys saw his great face turn in their direction, and they skipped to the right and the left so as to be out of his sight. And well it was that they did so, for out over the valley shot his arm, lengthening like elastic, and his great fingers reached over the rock where the twins had stood, and went feeling like 5 blind snakes. Finding nothing, the hand picked up the rock, though it was as large as a house, and back went the arm, getting shorter until the giant had the rock under his nose. Then he shut his eyes and turned his face down, opened his eyes again, and examined the rock. Finding nothing, he cast it away with a sudden jerk, much as if you jerk off some insect that drops on your hand unexpectedly. Ka-Keeks sat a while, then rose to his feet and strode straight down the valley to where the boys had been, looking straight ahead, of course. He went to a tree a little way off, plucked some fruit which looked like wild cherries, though each was as large as a pumpkin, and blundered off without seeing the boys who crouched low out of his sight. As soon as the giant had gone, the twins ran down into the valley, and there they saw, in great caves in the hills to the right and left, hidden heaps of flashing, precious stones, diamonds, emeralds, rubies, opals, dazzling in the sunshine. In other holes were heaped gold dust and silver. While looking, they were startled to hear a new roaring, this time from the hill to which Ka-Keeks had gone. Soon the roar formed into words, and they heard, "I am Kabra Khan, Kabra Khan who shakes the earth, Kabra Khan who shakes the sky. I am Kabra Khan, master of men." It was another giant, but him they did not see. Scrambling out of the valley, they reached the hilltop to see Ka-Keeks coming back to his valley. He stopped at the tree where he had stopped before and took some more fruit, then strode down the hill, marking time as he walked with his "I am Ka-Keeks, you Ka-Keeks, all men fear me." He sat down in his old seat, his hands again on his knees, his body swaying. He seemed uncomfortable and restless, much as if he expected danger, getting to his feet every now and then, peering about, going to his tree to eat fruit, and returning again to his seat. In fact, about every hour he went to his fruit tree. Seeing that, the lads had an idea, and, running to the fruit tree, climbed into it, hiding themselves in the thick branches. But no sooner were they safely there than they heard the monster coming. In a very short while, they felt the tree shake with the giant's heavy tread, for he was on his way to take another meal. Then, in less time than it takes to count 6, he was at the tree, his great blue face hiding the scenery. Quick as lightning, Hunahpu fitted an arrow to his bow, drew the string to his bow, and let fly. The shaft struck the ugly fellow in the chin, but so tough was his skin that the barb only pierced to his jaw. Still, the pain of it was enough to send him away roaring. Back he went into his valley and threw himself down, groaning and weeping. There was no loud song from him now. The boys descended from their tree and marched down to where Ka-Keeks lay, taking good care to keep out of the way of his great kicking feet. "Who are you?" asked the giant when he saw them. "And what do you want here?" "We are doctors," they answered. "Hearing your roar of pain, we came to help. It is your teeth that need attention. Let us take out your bad teeth, and you will be at ease." "But my teeth are my strength," said the giant. "Men do not know it," he added, with the lack of suspicion of all giants. "True," answered the twins. "We will pull out the old teeth and put new ones in their place." The giant opened his mouth, and to work they went, with hammers and bars of iron, and in a short time had his teeth all out. True to their promise, they put new teeth in place of the old, but the new teeth they fitted were made of grains of corn, and as soon as Kakix tried to eat with them, he found out his error. So in a short while he died from starvation, and the earth was rid of one of the monsters. There was a great joy among the band of 400 when the hero brothers returned and told their story, for they were glad of the good fortune of the twins and full of rejoicing that the world had one monster the less in it. And after a week of resting, there came a day when the whole band, bright in their polished armor and gay with feathers and flowers, set off for the stone mountain to bring back the treasures and to slay the remaining giants. But the tale is so long and so interesting that it must be left for another chapter. End of the Hero Twins.